The hesitation of even going to see a financial planner, a wealth manager, is a little scary for some people.
I think that's probably one of the misconceptions, and that is that to see a financial advisor, I must have a lot of money. Okay, well, that's it's not true.
Let's live on less than what you make right now. I love that you think a six-figure lifestyle is the golden ticket, but it's not if you spend six figures as well.
How important is it to take that dollar, that $5, that $10, and keep it rotating in our community to build upon it?
How you manage money when you have a little is how you'll manage it when you have a lot.
Now you have a generation who will probably be the first who will not benefit from a pension plan.
Right.
Okay, I mean, the days of defined benefit plans are pretty much gone.
Placing all of your discretionary dollars in a very risky, long-term individual stock would not be advantageous to your goal of buying a home in 2 to 3 years, because we have no idea what type of performance you'll receive in that short time frame.
Welcome back to Casual Conversations with Mario Morrow. Today's episode is going to be very educational. Today we have Larry Folmar, a guy who's been in the business now for 40 years, and a younger member of the financial wealth community, Clift, Roach. I want you to sit back and relax and enjoy this episode. And by the way, pull out a pad and a pen or a pencil and take some notes, because I got a feeling you're going to learn a lot and you're going to want to remember. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming and visiting us at Casual Conversations with Mario Morrow.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. This has been a long overdue. We wanted to talk about finance and fiscal responsibility, financial wealth, and you guys are the folks that I know and have known for some time now. You, Larry, for, I don't know, 50 years or so, I guess, something like that.
Close.
Maybe not 50,
Not 50.
Maybe 45.
Yes.
And Cliff, I've watched you grow up from a toddler all the way up.
Yeah.
And now you guys are the established leaders with financial wealth, and just had to have you come on and just talk about that a little bit. But before we get into that, the details, the proof's always in the pudding. I just want to just hear from you, both of you, on how you even got involved or started in the industry. And Larry, let's start with you. You're the senior here and had the most years of experience.
Yeah, my genesis began in the insurance industry, and I spent 14 years with a large insurance company, and following that, I made the transition into financial planning.
Very good. Cliff?
Yeah, it was originally never top of mind to get into finance, right? So it wasn't my first career out of college, but I was a client of an advisor early on. And one day when I was looking to make a transition, he suggested that I take a deeper look into financial planning. So through his guidance, he introduced me to some folks, and fast forward a few months later, I was in financial planning. So that was late 2019, and it's just been a rocket ship from there.
So Larry, from the time you started and you shifted from insurance to financial planning, what has changed? You've got different clientele. You might have the same clientele. You have me.
Yes.
You have folks that have been with you for a long time. But what
Yes.
are the most significant things that have changed over time?
In the industry,
Yes.
I think one is diversity. When I started close to 50 years ago, there weren't very many people in the industry who looked like me, and I have seen that evolve. Here's a good example. I have seen that evolve, and to see an entrance into the business of folk who not only look like me but also females.
Right.
And I guess the other thing that has changed is that the industry has broadened. The financial service industry has broadened, And now you have more banks, as an example, many years ago could not participate in that industry, and now it's all part of one.
Right. And Cliff, you've been in the industry now for what, 4 years?
Yeah, going on 5. Yep.
5 years. So, in your target clientele, would I, be correct by saying it's the younger generation, or do you still, go after the middle
Yeah.
age folks and older?
For sure. There's a healthy balance, right? Because everyone's in a different phase of their life, so they have different needs, but we can certainly accommodate all. So those in the pre-retiree phase or right at retirement, they need a different type of planning, right? They may need to be focused on the distribution. So how do I take all these assets and make sure they last for the latter years of my life without me working? Whereas the younger generation is more of an accumulation phase. They're looking to build and grow for the long term because they still have a lot of time ahead of them. So a majority of my clientele currently are individuals in my age range, right?
Right.
The millennials, but we definitely have a good handful of pre-retiree and retired folks that we're having those intimate conversations with to make sure they have peace of mind as they transition into the retirement every day is Saturday
Makes
lifestyle.
sense.
Yep.
I think that I met Larry when I was about 25
Okay.
or so. I was teaching, and Marilyn Jackson
Right.
introduced me to you, and she kept saying, you got to go over there and see a financial planner. You got to see a financial planner. I was really scared to go see a financial planner, actually, because Larry will tell you, man, I had about $75,000 worth of credit card debt. A lot of debt. And so I went to see Larry, and Larry said, man, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this debt. Now, I'm debt free now as it relates to credit cards.
Yes,
No credit
yes,
card whatsoever, and it's
yes.
been some time. But the hesitation of even going to see a financial planner, a wealth manager, is a little scary for some people. What advice, and just each one of you, what advice would you give someone who has that hesitation, who maybe not have a big bank account or large savings, but what advice and encouragement would you give them to come see you?
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the misconceptions, and that is that to see a financial advisor, I must have a lot of money. Okay, well, it's not true. Okay, I must have some money, obviously, but what's important is that now it's not so much how much you have; it's what you do with
Right.
it. How you manage it. Is it going towards debt? And is that debt eating up your future wealth? And so it's a matter of bringing those disciplines and prioritizing. As you said, eliminating the debt. Once you
Right.
can eliminate the debt, then you can begin on a journey then of wealth accumulation.
And turning that over to you, Cliff, how do you, because I'm sure there's a lot of hesitation with, your members of your age group to even come in and talk about it, and even the hesitation of them sharing their personal information with you.
Of course. I think it's important for me to stress to younger professionals that starting early and often is going to make it a lot easier down the line. And it's easiest to start those conversations with having them tell me about what they were used to growing up. What did they see? How was money managed in your household, right? Whoever raised you, were they good examples of financial planning, and do you want to duplicate that? And if so, well, let's figure out what they did early and replicate that. And if they were bad examples, let's make sure we avoid that, right? So I think giving them a realistic picture, like, hey, it may be hard for you to picture yourself at 65 because you're only 25 today, but who do you know that's 65, right? What did your grandparents do, your parents do? And if you want to model that, let's get the ball rolling. And even if you don't want to model that, you want to do something better, we still need to get the ball rolling.
And I think a lot of, in my age group, a lot of us didn't want to, model our parents. They did well. Don't trust me. They did okay as it relates to taking care of the household and things, but they just didn't have that institutional knowledge as it relates to investing or putting money into mutual fund or any other types of financial contributional 401ks and 401bs. What are some of the major misconceptions, Cliff, of financial wealth managers and financial planners?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest is that you have to have a ton of money to start, right? But how you manage money when you have a little is how you'll manage it when you have a lot.
That's right.
Right? So if you can't manage the $1,000 that you have right now to spare, if you do ever hit it big and you have a surplus of $1 million, you certainly won't do well with that. right? So I think understanding the foundational pieces of just getting the principles down packed before you try to run full speed is a big misconception.
And Larry, you talked about insurance as your starting point of your career. And insurance is so important, you know, whether it's whole insurance or life insurance. Maybe you can explain the difference between the two. But is that still a component of something that you would recommend or talk to your clients about, financial with insurance planning as well?
Oh, absolutely. And, financial planning is a process, and it takes on several disciplines. And insurance is just one of those that's considered risk management. And it's just a part of that pie. Planning allows one to address those risks that it can either short circuit their financial planning goal, okay, and death is certainly one of them, okay, and then of course there are others.
There's two things that's given in life, right?
That's
Death
right.
and taxes.
Death and taxes, and then risk management also takes in consideration a disability. So a person may have a long-term goal of reaching a certain dollar amount, but there are things that can happen within that time frame that can short fuel that their goal.
What's the difference between the whole insurance and term?
Okay,
The two.
whole life insurance basis, a whole is just that. It's for whole of life. Usually has some cash value that's built into it. Term is simply buyer protection for a certain period of time. So the outlay is smaller. So for a person or family who just starting out, don't have a whole lot of money, but yet have the need, and then term may well be the proper
Right.
component. Yeah.
And another part of insurance, Cliff, is educational planning for children and grandchildren.
Of course.
You know, there are all types of plans now. The state has a plan. There are privatized plans out there. And you mentioned a lot of your client base right now, millennials going up.
Yep.
What do you say to them when they either planning on having a family or maybe just had a kid?
Yeah, well, most important is to understand the flexibility that you have with different types of accounts, right? Because every financial instrument has a different purpose, and some allow you to do some things and others have restrictions, right? So the 529 college savings plan, for example, is specific for education expenses, right? But some people get full rides. So if you've tucked away thousands and thousands of dollars for your child's education, and then they have a full ride coming out of high school, now you can make a couple shifts with that money, but you may be penalized or taxed at a rate that I'm sure you don't want to pay if you don't use it for education, right? But then there's other people who are like, hey, I just want my child to have business startup opportunities, right? So they may look at funding dollars in something that's more flexible, but still gives them growth so that they're not restricted to using it for education only. So I think just understanding what you want that future to look like for your child and what's non-negotiable for you, and then that'll help you start and decide, hey, what's the best place for me to start tucking dollars away.
And then there's the MET plan, the Michigan Educational Trust Fund, and I'm familiar with that because we started with that with our son, who, that MET is designed for Michigan-based, if you're going to go to a Michigan-based school, where he did not go to a Michigan-based school. And then, we rolled it over and said, okay, let's turn it over to Savannah, my daughter, who decided she would go to a Michigan-based school for a year and say, I'm going to go to this private school someplace else. So you're right.
Yep.
There are different avenues and different things that you can do. You got to kind of figure it out. But you can also take that funds over a, 30-year span, I think it is, 30, 35-year span, and move it to, hopefully one day they'll have a grandkid. We'll have a grandkid, they'll have children, and we can move it to them as a gift. Yep. Or I can take the money and spend it myself.
Yep.
right. Go buy a Corvette or something, right, Larry? You'll approve that, right?
Hey, just pay tax.
Cliff, is it a struggle to talk to the younger folks about even, sitting down and talk about future finances? I know this generation is totally different. It might be easy, because all you guys want to make money all the time. Yeah. Was real money, like money now. Is it hard to talk about the future investment? Like, don't spend it all right now.
It can be, right? So finding the young person who understands the bigger picture is really a dime a dozen. But I think you're right. A lot of people my age are focused on high income, but they think that's the end of the picture, right? They never focused on spending less than they make, right? And putting away something for 30 years down the line. So,
Right.
like I said, I have to use examples all the time of what it can look like 20, 30 years out to really drive home the point of let's live on less than what you make right now. I love that you think a six-figure lifestyle is the golden ticket, but it's not if you spend six figures as well. So just having to reiterate
And that doesn't change.
No. Yeah, for
that
sure.
was me 40 years ago. That was just like, okay, we got to get the house, got to get the cars, you got to do this. And you really don't put money away until, sat down and Larry knocked me upside the head a few times, and made me realize with charts and graphs, and I'm like, wow, really? If I put this away, I can have this, and the reality sets in. So, Cliff, what's the selling point? What do you really say to them to convince them that come on now, I got some nice Benz out there, that's a nice BMW, but
Yeah.
what do you say to them to make it sit in and set in?
Absolutely. I think that's one thing is you have a nice car now, but the only way you're going to be able to sustain that type of luxurious lifestyle is if you start putting something away for later. Because one day you'll want to stop working or at least let work be optional. And the only way to sustain that lifestyle once you get older is if you're putting something away today. So I just always harp on, if you want this to last, you want to keep up the trips, the nice clothes, the cars, that's fine, but you just got to get a little bit ahead of the ball right now.
Right. And I'm getting towards, the 65 age, and every time you watch TV now, you hear, hey, Medicaid or Medicare or whatever the case may be, and you're forced into this. What advice, both of you guys, do you give to, folks that are moving towards retirement, thinking about slowing down? Some people are like, I'm done. I just want to get my Social Security, and maybe if there is a pension, there's not too many pensions anymore.
That's a great point. And that is force young people, the younger generation, perhaps now think about retirement at a young age before they even think, I have time. Well, it's a little different now, because now you have a generation who will probably be the first who will not benefit from a pension plan.
Right.
Okay, I mean, the days of defined benefit plans are pretty much gone. I mean, unless you're in a higher echelon.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And then for those who are nearing retirement, one of the things I mention to clients, and has nothing to do with money, planning of money is fine. We've reached the goal, but how are you planning your time? Okay, because if one does not plan their time, and now it's not a time to sit in your rocking chair.
Right.
Yes, the yearning years, but not sit in your rocking chair, because then you die.
Right.
So how are you going to use your time?
Cliff?
Yeah, I think I'd like to harp on what type of motion and traveling and lifestyle is desired when you're in retirement, because individuals that are 50 to 55, they're thinking about the finish line, right? So it's, hey, do you want to run around with the grandkids every day? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want to buy a boat? Do you want a vacation home? Or do you want to downsize? Do you want to sit in a rocking chair every day, right? And depending on what that vision is, will determine how we should plan for the next 20, 30 years.
That's right.
So you guys would have like planning sessions, how far out? Just say most folks now retire about, 65 to 70. How far out do you sit down and say, okay, we've built this portfolio for you, estate planning maybe, 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out?
As early as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, the younger we start, the better.
The better.
Yeah.
Especially with maybe your clients and the millennials, since
Yep.
they don't have that set pension.
Absolutely.
It's a rarity.
Yeah, and that's why we have to emphasize doing extra early on right now, because as you mentioned, without us having pensions and questionable Social Security, right, those are two streams of income that maybe our grandparents had that we won't have. So we have to make those small sacrifices early on.
And one of the, this huge thing that is before us in our community is this whole thing about generational wealth, which is concerning because we aren't there yet. And in your opinion, and maybe some advice, how do we get there as as African Americans? How do we obtain generational wealth within our families? What advice would you or suggestions would you give our viewers?
I think one is that when we speak of how the industry has changed, that's definitely one. The Bible speaks of a wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. We have not always had that problem. One, for many years, we couldn't even buy a life insurance policy, but now we have that opportunity. So that is the first door, to open in terms of creating generational wealth. That's money that can now be passed on to another generation. And I think the other idea is that we now have to have that discussion, with our children. Mm-hmm. Okay, one in terms of wealth, but not only just the wealth, but then how to manage the wealth once it's received.
And Cliff, piggybacking on what Larry had just stated, how important is it to take that dollar, that $5, that $10, mm-hmm. and keep it rotating in our community to build upon it?
Yeah, that's super important, and it's a topic that I've actually talked about on mm-hmm. several different platforms, is mm-hmm. keeping the dollar within our community as it exchange hands, because other communities have been really successful at keeping their dollar within the family. And I think, the dollar in our community lasts maybe a couple hours before we go give it to someone else, but it literally will fund everyone's businesses. It'll fund our households and keep us afloat. And also, to piggyback on his point about the generational wealth and the life insurance, I think that's an absolute no-brainer, right? It's the most simple and affordable way to pass on generational wealth, but estate planning needs to be followed up properly with that as well. That's right? Because there's property, assets, houses, businesses owned, and you wish to transfer that to the next generation, having the estate plan in order is going to make sure that all that transitions smoothly.
And within that estate planning, you have the will. You have everything outlined so that when grandma or mom and dad, unfortunately will pass away and, there's nothing there. And mm-hmm. I mean, we saw it with Aretha Franklin, mm-hmm. finding a will underneath mm-hmm. the sofa kind of thing, mm-hmm. where people are fighting over funds, mm-hmm. fighting over a house. Mm-hmm. But those are very good points. So generational wealth is powerful, right. And we need to continue building upon it within our community.
Absolutely.
Mutual funds, stocks, do you guys dab in that a little bit, or is that just sort of like you deal with the big picture portfolios? How does that? Because you're not a stockbroker. You guys are not stockbrokers, right. So I want to be clear about that. Mm-hmm. So how do you talk to your clients about the differences between all these different means of placing your money and making money?
Mm-hmm. Well, financial planning is not a product. It's a process. And so the process entails that you use different financial planning tools. Investments are just a tool. So it's a matter of how that particular tool fits into the scheme and the strategy of a particular client.
Right.
Because they're all different.
Yeah.
One may be acceptable, depends on what their risk tolerance is, and a number of other issues determine whether or not that particular tool is the best tool for that person to achieve their right. Particular goal or objective.
Younger folks like the stocks, though. Mm-hmm. They like to play with the stocks,
they do.
Right?
Yep. I think what's important for them to understand is time horizon relative to your risk tolerance has to make sense, because a lot of younger people, they just want to go hard and fast. They want to be super aggressive, but sometimes they have a goal that is short term, like I want to purchase a home in 2 to 3 years. Mm-hmm. What they don't understand is placing all of your discretionary dollars in a very risky long-term individual stock would not be advantageous to your goal of buying a home in 2 to 3 years, because we have no idea what type of performance you'll receive in that short time frame. So it's really important for us to have conversations about what is the actual goal, what is the time horizon, and then matching your investments to fit that appropriately. And
we also don't know what the industry is going to look like. You could be looking at a 2.5 interest rate versus, now what 5, 6, 7 interest rate, depending on your credit score, which we didn't talk about yet. Right. How important the credit score is, in today's society, especially among our young people and our seniors. Like, some people try to go out and buy a car and it could be 50 years old and they're going to get an interest rate of 17%. Now, in this financial planning industry, and there's lots of terms, financial wealth planner, experts in the financial field, what advice would you give our viewers to when they want to seek a person of your expertise? How do you select such a person? How do you select a financial planner? You go to open up the white pages or yellow pages, or what do you do?
I think the first step is to sit down and have a discussion, ask some questions. How are you going to work with me? And some even want to ask, how are you compensated? If that's a question, then you have to address that question.
Right.
Okay.
What about certification?
Yeah.
That too.
That too, as well. And there are different certifications.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cliff?
I think doing your due diligence, knowing that a person is properly credentialed, especially for my generation, because it's easy to go on the internet and just give yourself whatever title you want. But is there any legitimate source that verifies that you actually know this information? But also having an intimate conversation to see if your goals and vision align with what that advisor claims they can help you with. Right. And if it doesn't feel right, if the chemistry isn't there when you first meet them, maybe you have a conversation with someone else until you find the right fit.
How do you vet folks in your profession out? Is there an organization that you can call to see if they're legitimate or not, or because let's face it, older folks are not gonna, maybe even younger folks are not gonna say, well, let me just Google this person, and anything can pop up in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But how do you really find out if this person is the real deal?
Well, one is that there's with the advisors, there's tied to the regulatory guidelines, which allows you to, individuals to check to see if that individual has any complaints against them. To see if they are the real deal, not only licensed, but have they committed acts that were harmful,
Right.
to people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've seen some, and just in our time.
Right.
That's yes, they can check.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to hear. Similar to the law profession, where you can call the bar association and find out if this is a good lawyer or not,
Yeah.
if they've got any negative checks next to their name.
Yeah.
When you go online specifically, you can go to FINRA.com. So FINRA, right? That's the federal regulatory body that governs licensed professionals, and when we're talking about investments specifically, right? So on there, it'll tell you years of experience. It'll tell you licensures that individuals have, any derogatory marks, so you can see, does this person have a track record of doing right by their clients, or do they not? And that'll just give you a simple baseline to determine, is this at least a credible person?
And what's that? Give me that one more time.
Yeah, it's FINRA, so FINRA, FINRA broker check.
Very good. Now, I just want to make the point that just because, Larry, you veteran in the industry, 40 plus years, Cliff, almost new but not new, because you're on a fast track, 5 years, that you both handle the demographics of the older and the younger. You both handle the demographics of folks who got a lot of money and folks that are just making by what they have. So if people wanted to come see you and talk to you, it doesn't matter. You'll put whoever on the right path. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What advice, Larry, would you give someone who wants to come into the industry, who's just starting off in the financial wealth or management industry? What would you say to them?
The first thing is, I would ask the question, why? Okay. And that'd be first, okay. And then number two, if and once we get that resolved, then I think there has to be a passion, for the industry, and not just a passion for the industry. There has to be a passion for people, in terms of helping people. Because if one is just chasing the buck, then that's not the right person for the for the business. Scripture talks about one who is greedy for gain. There's ends up into temptations and lusts, and so the first thing is, do you have a passion for the people that you're working with?
Right.
Do you have a desire to help people. If you have a desire to help people, then I think the industry would be a very good place to.
Cliff, what advice would you give to someone who was like, Cliff, I want to be just like you, man. I want to just, I see you, look at you, you're sharp, you got that nice car, you helping people, you smart.
I agree wholeheartedly with Larry, is that their why has to be critically important. So for me, the day it clicked was when I understood that I wanted to serve my community and be a resource for wealth building that we don't have, right? And because I'm so passionate about that, even when we are riding a roller coaster and we're on the downward slopes, I can still get up in the morning and say I can fight through this because I have a bigger mission than just having a nice car because it pays well, right? So I think if an individual is just chasing the money or they just think it's cool to wear a suit, they might not sustain very long. So having an important why is going to be the root cause. And I also think that being able to not take things personal will really help you, because you'll get in and understand very quickly that your immediate friends may be the last people to do business with you. Right? So your strangers will be your best clients. So.
Right, that's a good point, man.
That's true.
That's a good point.
That's true.
And what, do you have seminars? Do you invite them? How do you attract folks? Do you have coffee clutches? You just say, oh, come on by the office, because it's like a sales job too to get them in the door. So Cliff, how do you convince people to come talk to you?
There's a ton of different activities. So I'm currently hosting an event monthly, but it's just a networking get together, right? A mastermind of personal friends, family network of people who we know will enjoy being in the same space. And of that, organically conversations come up about the financial planning work that we do, and they're automatically curious to say, hey, can we sit down? But social media as well is a really big tool for us these days, because millennials are on their phone all day, every day, and amidst all the other nonsense and chaos that they might be looking at, it's refreshing to see someone who can educate and kind of help them walk those steps of financial planning. So leveraging those two things are really
and it's a lot different for you, Larry, because I think most of your clients now come on referral base.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it just continues growing and growing and growing. And Cliff, it's probably the same for you too, referral base.
Absolutely.
But Larry, I'm sure you have, the transitional sort of family, generational, I should say, folks that are coming to you after, let's say, their parents pass or whatever the case may be. How do you, continue to have that business or continue to have that relationship with those families?
Well, many of them I have known be children. I knew the children when they were children. Okay, some were in baskets when they visited their parents. It's true. So when visited their parents. Now they've become clients, so they know me. They know me not just as the financial advisor, but they know me as a family friend.
Yes.
Because we built a relationship.
Yes.
And the relationship extends beyond just money. It's that he cares. He's been involved with my family for many years. So the transition has been made a little less difficult.
Now, with the internet out there and all this information, people can Google things, they can find out all types of information. But it's also a negative to some degree. You can go online and get some bad information. Do you talk to your clients about that?
Absolutely, especially in my generation, right? I'll wake up one day and have 3 or 4 direct messages like, is this video legit? Can you really do this? And I'm like, no, you can't just get an LLC and then have generational wealth overnight and get a Lamborghini or a line of credit.
It was called a pyramid scheme when we were growing up.
There's a ton of misinformation floating around on the internet. But my perspective is, if the information didn't come from, one, a licensed, credible person, and also didn't come from someone who took time to understand your particular situation, you shouldn't take that as advice, right? That's the way I look at it.
That's like, if you have a medical condition, you're not going to go online and check out how to, what the diagnosis is and try to get, I'm going to do the surgery myself. You got to go to a professional.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And you guys work 24/7?
Yes, pretty much.
What do you do for fun, Cliff?
Sports, super active. Tennis courts, basketball when I can. I'm realizing that 30 is
So you just said something that you don't even really understand what you just said, Larry. Tennis all the time.
Until the knees wouldn't.
You don't play anymore?
No.
Oh,
I played a
okay.
couple of years.
Okay, yeah. That must be a financial management thing, tennis. You know, don't watch Wall Street, right? Get your advice.
Yep.
Now, if people want to get in contact with you, Larry, how would they contact you?
Okay, contact my office, Folmar Financial, and the number is 248-352-9880.
Okay, one more time.
248-352-9880.
I learned that from John Mason. You got to say it twice in this
Yes.
business so people can, wait a minute, I didn't get my pencil. Cliff?
Yeah, for me, the easiest way would be on LinkedIn. So you can just type in my name at Clift Roach II.
Now, for those over 60 who don't do LinkedIn, who are already established, how would they contact you?
Yep.
Another way?
Yeah, well, I can give out my office line as well. It's
That's fine.
313-850-5474.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, this is the fun part where I'm going to it's called rapid fire. And I'm just going to throw some stuff out there. Both of you guys just answer, don't think about it. And Cliff, the first one might not pertain to you because I'm just going to ask Larry this one because I don't know if you went on Bobolo Island or not, or Bobolo Boat or
Yes.
Edgewater.
Yes.
I don't think, So anyway, Edgewater or Bobolo? Which
Bobolo.
one? Bobolo. Traverse City, both of you guys, Traverse City or Mackinac, if you had to pick one.
Traverse City.
Traverse City.
I don't know, Cliff, T Grizzly or Sada Baby? Am I
T
saying that
Grizzly.
right? Sada Baby?
Sada Baby, yeah.
Okay, who'd
T
you say?
Grizzly. T Grizzly.
Larry, I'm not going to ask you that.
Please don't. Who?
Right? That's what I said. Fireworks or Grand Prix?
Grand Prix.
Fireworks.
Fireworks, okay. Stocks or bonds?
Stocks.
Stocks.
Really? Okay. Index funds or mutual funds?
Index funds.
Yeah. Now, if you had to do, you said 529 or MET for educational funding. If you had to just,
It depends.
is that a hard one? Okay, I'm not gonna do that to you guys. All right, man. American made car, or foreign?
American made.
American made.
All right. Okay, I didn't expect you to say that.
Oh, yeah. Right now, I'm still on the American train. I might switch up sooner or later, but
Well, listen, really appreciate you guys being with us
Thank you
today.
for having us.
And Larry, personally, I appreciate all the advice you've given me over the years, and
Thank you.
it's put me in a very good situation.
Thank you.
Cliff, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Watching you grow and all the successes that you've had, and I wish you much success in the future. And I do hope that you two exchange numbers and
Of course.
connect.
We
And
will.
Cliff, you can use Larry as a mentor, and Larry, you can probably know ask him about T Grizzly and Sada.
Yes. You're right or what?
you might not want to know. I promise. you might be better
You
off
might not want to know.
Oh, God.
Thank you very much for joining us on another episode of Casual Conversations with Mario Morrow with our two financial experts, Larry Folmar and Cliff Roach. See you next time.